The dawn of October 24th, 1944, broke with an unusual stillness across the vast expanse of the Philippine Sea, where the formidable USS Essex, an American fleet carrier, cut through the cerulean waters. Commander David McCampbell, a seasoned air group commander, then 34 years of age, had already accumulated an astonishing number of combat sorties, far exceeding the typical career total for most aviators. Yet, the preceding engagements of his distinguished career offered no true preparation for the tumultuous hours that were about to unfold. The titanic Battle of Leyte Gulf was rapidly escalating, with the Imperial Japanese Navy unleashing its remaining formidable assets against the advancing American invasion force. Urgent intelligence dispatches flooded into command centers, detailing the imminent approach of a massive enemy strike contingent directly toward the American carrier group. Consequently, every available fighter aircraft was ordered to achieve immediate airborne status. McCampbell observed from the flight deck as his pilots scrambled with urgent precision to their Grumman F-6F Hellcats. The atmosphere was thick with the pungent aroma of aviation fuel, punctuated by the deafening crescendo of radial engines roaring to life. His personal aircraft, a Hellcat distinguished by the number 13 and affectionately christened Mincy III in homage to his beloved wife, stood primed for deployment. However, a critical logistical impediment arose. Owing to the hasty scramble, his aircraft had not undergone a complete refueling procedure. While standard operational protocol mandated the meticulous topping off of fuel tanks, the luxury of time was conspicuously absent. Enemy forces were estimated to be less than 60 minutes away. In a moment of acute pressure, McCampbell made a pivotal, split-second strategic decision that would indelibly etch his name into the annals of naval aviation. He resolved to launch immediately with the limited fuel supply on board. His loyal wingman, Lieutenant Roy Rushing, found himself in an identical predicament, and, without hesitation, echoed McCampbell's audacious choice. Please stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. What neither aviator could possibly have foreseen was their impending participation in one of the most astonishingly disproportionate aerial confrontations in the entire chronicle of military aviation. The Japanese strike force bearing down upon them comprised an estimated 60 aircraft, a diverse and deadly amalgam of Mitsubishi A6M Zero fighters, Nakajima B6N torpedo bombers, and Yokosuka D4Y dive bombers. These formidable warbirds had been launched from both Japanese aircraft carriers and land-based airfields, forming a desperate, meticulously coordinated assault designed to utterly decimate the American Carrier Task Force, providing crucial support for General Douglas MacArthur's triumphant return to the Philippines. The Japanese High Command harbored no illusions. They understood with chilling clarity that the loss of the Philippines would irrevocably sever their vital supply arteries to the resource-rich territories of the Dutch East Indies. This was far from merely another engagement. It represented Japan's final, realistic gambit to reverse the inexorable tide of the Pacific War. Within the Essex, his Combat Information Center, the relentless pursuit of incoming enemy contacts was meticulously conducted via radar, their positions precisely delineated with grease pencil markings on large plotting boards. Fighter director officers, with unwavering focus, orchestrated the interception, expertly vectoring the limited complement of available Hellcats toward the looming menace. A significant portion of the Essex's fighter squadron had already been dispatched on other critical assignments, maintaining combat air patrol, providing escorts for strike missions, and conducting anti-submarine sweeps. This left McCampbell and Rushing, alongside a mere 5 other intrepid fighters, to confront an attacking force nearly 10 times their numerical strength. The arithmetic was undeniably grim, yet McCampbell possessed crucial advantages that the Japanese had not yet fully comprehended. His Hellcat represented a pinnacle of technological advancement when juxtaposed with the Zeros he was destined to engage. And his exceptional gunnery prowess had been meticulously honed through dozens of prior encounters, during which he had already amassed an impressive tally of 21 confirmed aerial victories. As McCampbell's Hellcat was forcefully propelled from the Essex's flight deck by the powerful catapult, the intense acceleration pressed him back into his seat with an almost crushing force. The robust fighter clawed its way skyward, its Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine unleashing 2,000 horsepower of unadulterated, raw power. Within a matter of minutes, he and Rushing had ascended to a formidable altitude of 25,000 feet, strategically positioning themselves between the sprawling Japanese formation and the vulnerable American carriers below. The other 5 intrepid fighters had already engaged disparate segments of the enemy formation, leaving McCampbell and Rushing to confront the primary group in solitary defiance. Through the protective confines of his canopy, McCampbell could discern them clearly. A vast, menacing formation of Japanese aircraft, stretching across the vast canvas of the sky like a deadly, unstoppable swarm. They maintained a relatively tight formation, brimming with a confidence born of their overwhelming numerical superiority, utterly oblivious to the fact that they were about to encounter 2 of the most extraordinarily skilled and formidable fighter pilots in the entire United States Navy. David McCampbell's journey to that fateful October morning was anything but a straight line. Born on January 16, 1910, in the industrial heartland of Bessemer, Alabama, he spent his formative years in West Palm Beach, Florida, where his family had relocated during his boyhood. His father, a dedicated manager of a construction company, instilled in young David an early fascination and natural aptitude for mechanics and engineering. Driven by ambition, he applied to the prestigious United States Naval Academy, securing his coveted appointment in 1929 and joining the distinguished class of 1933. Annapolis, with its rigorous demands, proved to be a crucible of intense challenges. The traditional, often brutal, hazing rituals, the relentless academic pressure, and the unyielding, rigid discipline. Yet, McCampbell not only endured, but thrived within this highly competitive and demanding environment. While he did not emerge at the very apex of his graduating class, his performance was consistently solid, marked by unwavering reliability and an indomitable determination. Following his graduation, he embarked on his naval career serving aboard the heavy cruiser USS Portland, where he meticulously acquired invaluable knowledge of seamanship and naval tactics. During fleet exercises, he often observed with keen interest as daring naval aviators executed landings on nearby aircraft carriers. Something about the audacious skill and sheer nerve of these pilots profoundly captured his imagination and sparked a nascent desire. In 1937, McCampbell, at the age of 27, submitted his application for flight training at Naval Air Station Pensacola, Florida. At the time, This age was considered rather advanced by the prevailing standards of naval aviation. Most aspiring pilots typically commenced their training in their early 20s, and the Navy generally favored younger candidates who could anticipate longer flying careers. Nevertheless, McCampbell's persistence paid off, and the Navy, recognizing his potential, accepted him despite his age. Flight training proved to be an utterly exhausting ordeal. He diligently flew the N-3N biplane trainer, mastering the foundational principles of basic aerobatics, intricate navigation, and the critical fundamentals of aerial gunnery. Then came the ultimate test, carrier qualification, a moment that simultaneously filled every aspiring naval aviator with both profound dread and an intense longing. Landing an aircraft on a pitching, often turbulent, carrier deck, with the added complexity of arresting wires, was less a precise science and more a demanding art form, demanding precise speed control, impeccable alignment, and nerves forged from steel. McCampbell proudly earned his coveted Wings of Gold in 1938, but his timing, in retrospect, seemed almost cursed. When the devastating conflagration of World War II erupted in Europe in September 1939, McCampbell found himself serving as a flight instructor at Naval Air Station Miami. As America gradually edged closer to direct involvement in the global conflict, he watched with growing frustration as younger, less experienced pilots were assigned to frontline carrier squadrons, while he remained inexplicably tethered to training commands. The Navy's rationale, though frustratingly logical, was simple. Highly experienced instructors were absolutely essential to train the massive influx of new pilots urgently needed for the war effort. McCampbell excelled at teaching, and this very proficiency meant he remained in a teaching role. By the time the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor occurred on December 7, 1941, McCampbell, then 31 years old, had never experienced combat. He submitted request after fervent request for a transfer to a combat squadron, and each one was, without exception, denied. Month after agonizing month, he watched the unfolding tragedy and heroism of the war from the distant training fields of Florida, while his former students fought and tragically often died in the brutal crucible of the Pacific Theater. The year 1942 finally brought a pivotal turn in his career as the United States Navy, facing an acute and pressing demand for seasoned aviators, prioritized combat experience over instructional duties. Consequently, McCampbell received orders assigning him to the USS Wasp, an aircraft carrier that had recently been redeployed from its vital Atlantic convoy responsibilities to the intense crucible of the Pacific Theater. While diligently executing combat air patrol missions, providing a critical aerial shield for the carrier against potential Japanese airborne assaults, his direct engagement with the enemy remained somewhat limited. However, fate intervened dramatically on September 15, 1942, when the Wasp, actively supporting the arduous Guadalcanal campaign, suffered a devastating assault. 3 torpedoes, launched with precision by the Japanese submarine Yafchoy 19, struck the vessel, initiating a catastrophic chain of internal explosions and infernal, uncontrollable fires that ravaged the ship's core. Though McCampbell miraculously survived this harrowing ordeal, being rescued from the tumultuous ocean waters by vigilant destroyers, as the Wasp succumbed to the waves, the experience was profound. He had scarcely engaged in significant aerial combat, yet already the very vessel he called home had tragically vanished beneath the surface. Following this devastating loss, the Navy initially reassigned him to various staff positions, a development that filled McCampbell with considerable apprehension, as he harbored a deep-seated fear of spending the remainder of the conflict confined to a bureaucratic desk. Nevertheless, his unwavering determination and persistent appeals bore fruit in early 1943, culminating in his distinguished appointment as commander of Air Group 15. This newly constituted unit was slated for deployment aboard the formidable USS Essex. This promotion was truly exceptional, signifying that McCampbell would assume leadership not merely of a single squadron, but of an entire composite air group, encompassing a diverse array of aircraft, including potent fighters, precision dive bombers, and effective torpedo bombers. At 33 years of age, he was notably more senior than the majority of the youthful pilots serving under his command. Yet this maturity conferred distinct advantages. He had meticulously amassed thousands of flight hours, cultivating an unparalleled understanding of aerial tactics that eluded many younger, less experienced aviators, and he consistently exhibited a remarkable composure under immense pressure, a quality that profoundly inspired confidence throughout his unit. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. Throughout the entirety of 1943, Air Group 15 underwent a period of rigorous and intensive training, meticulously honing their skills and coordination. When the USS Essex finally deployed to the Pacific in early 1944, McCampbell found himself, at long last, in a prime position to unequivocally demonstrate his profound capabilities and leadership. His personal Grumman F-6F Hellcat, a formidable machine, proudly bore the affectionate name Mincy, a tribute to his beloved wife, Mildred, who was affectionately known by that nickname. By June 1944, during the monumental aerial engagements of the Battle of the Philippine Sea, an event famously and vividly dubbed the Marianas Turkey Shoot due to the overwhelming American air superiority, McCampbell had already secured his initial 7 aerial victories, unequivocally solidifying his reputation and proving his rightful place among the Navy's most elite and accomplished aviators. The Grumman F-6F Hellcat, far from being just another addition to the arsenal of fighter aircraft, represented a meticulously engineered response forged from the crucible of hard-won, often bloody, lessons garnered through relentless combat over the vast expanse of the Pacific. When American pilots first confronted the nimble Mitsubishi A6M0 in 1942, they faced an adversary that could effortlessly outturn, outclimb, and outmaneuver virtually every aircraft the United States then had in the skies. The Zero, characterized by its lightweight construction and exceptional agility, proved a deadly instrument in the hands of its highly skilled Japanese pilots. Early American fighters, such as the F-4F Wildcat, found themselves decisively outmatched, compelling American strategists to devise compensatory tactics to overcome the inherent inferiority of their equipment. However, Grumman's ingenious engineers, collaborating closely with combat pilots who had endured and survived direct encounters with the formidable Zeros, conceived and designed the Hellcat with the explicit purpose of utterly dominating its Japanese counterpart. The ultimate outcome was a fighter that fundamentally and completely reversed the prevailing dynamics of aerial combat. The Hellcat's Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine emerged as its paramount and first crucial advantage. This extraordinary 18-cylinder radial monster was capable of generating a staggering 2,000 horsepower, propelling the Hellcat to an impressive top speed of 380 mph at an altitude of 23,000 feet, a velocity significantly surpassing the Zero's maximum of 350 mph. In the intricate ballet of aerial combat, speed holds paramount importance as it intrinsically dictates the terms of engagement. A swifter aircraft possesses the invaluable prerogative to choose precisely when to initiate a confrontation, and equally vital, when to disengage. Should a Hellcat pilot find himself in a precarious situation, he could simply advance the throttle, rapidly extending away from any pursuing Zeros, thereby creating sufficient distance to reposition for a subsequent attack. The Zero, lacking this critical speed, simply could not keep pace. This inherent speed superiority also empowered Hellcat pilots to effectively execute boom and zoom tactics, a devastating maneuver involving a high-altitude dive, a high-speed firing pass, and then a rapid climb back to altitude before the more maneuverable Zeros could leverage their superior turning capabilities. McCampbell, renowned for his tactical acumen, had thoroughly mastered this particular tactic, understanding that exploiting the Hellcat's inherent strengths while judiciously avoiding its weaknesses was absolutely fundamental to survival in the unforgiving skies. Durability stood as the Hellcat's second game-changing attribute. The Zero, in its pursuit of legendary agility, had regrettably sacrificed robust protection. It featured only minimal armor plating and conspicuously lacked self-sealing fuel tanks. Consequently, a mere burst of machine gun fire could tragically ignite a Zero's fuel tanks, instantly transforming the aircraft into a horrifying fireball. Japanese pilots, in a grim acknowledgement of this profound vulnerability, often referred to their own aircraft as flying lighters. The Hellcat, by stark contrast, was engineered with the resilience of a flying tank. It incorporated heavy armor plate positioned strategically behind the pilot's seat, reinforced armored glass within the windscreen, and, critically, self-sealing fuel tanks designed to automatically seal bullet holes, thereby preventing dangerous fuel leaks and catastrophic fires. Hellcats were capable of absorbing truly tremendous battle damage and yet still bring their pilots safely back to base. Grumman's commitment to rugged construction meant that even when Zeros did manage to score solid hits on Hellcats, the e.g. American aircraft frequently endured the punishment. This exceptional durability instilled in Hellcat pilots the profound confidence to press their attacks aggressively, secure in the knowledge that their robust aircraft could withstand considerable punishment. Firepower represented the third and arguably overwhelming advantage possessed by the Hellcat. This formidable fighter mounted 6 Browning M2 50 caliber heavy machine guns, with 3 strategically positioned in each wing, each gun supplied with a generous 400 rounds of ammunition. These potent weapons delivered a blistering rate of fire, discharging between 750 to 850 rounds per minute, and the 50 caliber round itself packed an enormous and devastating destructive punch. When all 6 guns were simultaneously engaged, a common occurrence whenever a Hellcat pilot depressed the trigger, they unleashed a torrent of projectiles capable of literally sawing through aluminum airframes, shattering engines, and disintegrating control surfaces with terrifying efficiency. The Zero, in comparison, typically carried only 2 20mm cannons, which were notoriously limited in ammunition capacity, alongside 2 7.7 machine guns. While the 20mm cannon did deliver a harder impact per shell, its severely constrained ammunition supply necessitated that Zero pilots exercise extreme selectivity and precision with their firing. Hellcat pilots, conversely, could afford to unleash longer bursts, and the sheer, overwhelming volume of 50 caliber rounds significantly increased the probability of hitting their intended targets. McCampbell, a master of aerial gunnery, was particularly renowned for his exceptional marksmanship, rarely expending ammunition needlessly, preferring instead to fire short, meticulously precise bursts that maximized the effectiveness of his finite ammunition supply. The Hellcat's cockpit design offered superior visibility, providing its pilots with an expansive and unobstructed view of the surrounding airspace. The innovative bubble canopy, a significant technological advancement, afforded excellent sight lines in virtually all directions, a crucial advantage for spotting enemy fighters before they could maneuver into a threatening attack position. Aerial combat during World War II was frequently decided by which pilot possessed the critical advantage of sighting the enemy first. Enhanced visibility directly translated into superior situational awareness, and this heightened awareness, in turn, was often the decisive factor in surviving to engage in combat another day. Furthermore, the aircraft ingeniously incorporated hydraulically powered folding wings, a feature that significantly enhanced carrier storage efficiency and allowed aircraft carriers to accommodate a greater number of fighters aboard. Its rate of roll, the speed at which the aircraft could rotate around its longitudinal axis, was another distinct Hellcat advantage, facilitating rapid and decisive direction changes during intense dogfights. Perhaps most critically for carrier-based operations, the Hellcat was remarkably easy to fly. It exhibited forgiving handling characteristics, notably lacked any vicious stall behavior, and provided an exceptionally stable platform for accurate gunnery. These qualities meant that rookie pilots could be trained to operational proficiency far more rapidly than with more temperamental and demanding aircraft. The scene in the ready room that morning was utterly chaotic. Radar operators had just reported an incoming Japanese aerial assault, estimated to arrive around 820 hours. Within moments, the ship's loudspeakers blared with an urgent command: "Pilots, man your planes!" McCampbell and the other available fighter pilots immediately sprinted towards the flight deck, hastily donning their flight gear as they ran. Standard pre-flight inspections were drastically shortened, reduced to only the barest essentials. Mechanics were still in the process of refueling several aircraft when the order to launch without delay came through. McCampbell's crew chief delivered the grim news. His Hellcat was carrying only approximately 300 gallons of fuel, a stark contrast to the standard 550 gallons typically held in the main tank. This represented roughly half of his usual combat fuel load. A rapid mental calculation informed McCampbell that he had perhaps 2 hours of flight time, and that was assuming a conservative cruise setting. Engaging in combat maneuvers at full throttle, he knew, would deplete his tanks far more rapidly. While most pilots might have prudently waited for a complete refueling, such a delay carried the grave risk of allowing the Japanese strike force to reach the American carriers unimpeded. Lieutenant Roy Rushing found himself in an identical predicament. His Hellcat was similarly underfueled, yet Rushing exhibited no hesitation. The 24-year-old pilot, hailing from Tennessee, had been flying as McCampbell's wingman for several months, forging an almost telepathic understanding, born from repeated combat engagements. An exceptional wingman does not merely follow, he anticipates, diligently guards the leader's vulnerable blind spots, and orchestrates attacks seamlessly without requiring explicit instructions. Rushing was undeniably one of the finest. He had already achieved several aerial victories in previous missions, and his gunnery skills were nearly as accurate as McCampbell's own. As they settled into their respective cockpits, McCampbell conveyed a concise briefing to Rushing over the radio. Stay together, ensure every shot finds its mark, and keep a close eye on those fuel gauges. They understood that this engagement demanded shrewd tactics, as there would be no opportunity for a second attempt. Please stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. The 7 Hellcats launched in rapid succession, each fighter propelled off the deck by the controlled explosions of steam and potent hydraulic power from the catapults. Once airborne, they quickly formed a loose formation and ascended towards the vectored intercept coordinates provided by the Essex's fighter direction officer. The radio communications were fraught with tension, but maintained a high level of professionalism. Other American fighters from various carriers were also scrambling into the skies, yet coordination between the different ships remained minimal. Essentially, each carrier group was responsible for managing its own defensive operations. McCampbell's flight ultimately reached an altitude of 25,000 feet and leveled off, their eyes meticulously scanning the expansive horizon for any sign of the approaching enemy formation. At that rarefied altitude, the air was thin and piercingly cold, while the Hellcat's engines hummed with a steady, reassuring rhythm. McCampbell meticulously checked his instruments. Oil pressure registered good, engine temperature was normal, and ammunition counters indicated full loads. He commanded a formidable arsenal of 2,400 rounds distributed across his 6 guns. If he maintained disciplined trigger control, this considerable ammunition supply could translate into dozens of potential firing opportunities. Then the enemy appeared. The Japanese formation manifested as faint, dark specks against the brilliant blue expanse of the sky, rapidly expanding in size as the 2 opposing forces swiftly converged. McCampbell's gaze quickly tallied their numbers, at least 60 aircraft, possibly even more. They maintained a relatively loose formation with agile Zero fighters strategically positioned above and around the slower bombers. The bomber contingent comprised a diverse mix of Nakajima B-6N Jill torpedo bombers and Yokosuka D-4Y Judy dive bombers, each laden with ordnance specifically designed to incapacitate or sink American carriers. The Zeros were there to provide crucial protection, and McCampbell was acutely aware that these escort fighters would engage with aggressive ferocity. Japanese fighter pilots in the latter half of 1944, it was understood, were not the battle-hardened elite veterans who had distinguished themselves at pivotal engagements like Midway or Guadalcanal. Most of those skilled aces had perished, yet they remained formidable adversaries, and the desperation of their situation often rendered them unpredictable. The remaining 5 Hellcats within McCampbell's flight deftly peeled off, each engaging different segments of the expansive Japanese formation, meticulously adhering to their pre-briefed tactical plans. This left McCampbell and Rushing isolated, a mere duo of fighters facing an overwhelming force of 60 enemy aircraft. McCampbell keyed his radio and in a remarkably calm voice instructed Rushing, Stay with me. Our priority is to target the bombers first. The tactical rationale behind this decision was undeniably sound. The bombers represented the immediate and most significant threat to the American carriers. Their destruction would effectively neutralize the danger. Enemy fighters, while dangerous, were considered secondary targets. If they could successfully disrupt the bomber formation, compelling them to jettison their deadly torpedoes and bombs, the mission would be deemed a success, even if they failed to shoot down a single zero. McCampbell strategically positioned his aircraft above and slightly behind the enemy formation, leveraging his superior altitude to orchestrate his initial attack run. The Japanese pilots, focused intently on maintaining their formation and vigilantly scanning for American fighters approaching from ahead, had not yet detected their presence. McCampbell carefully checked his gun sight. The illuminated reticle glowed with an amber hue, centered precisely within his windscreen. He then flipped the master armament switch to the armed position, feeling the faint electrical hum as the gun charging system activated. His heart rate remained steady, his breathing controlled and even. Years of rigorous training and months of intense combat had meticulously prepared him for this precise, critical moment. He smoothly rolled his Hellcat inverted, pulled back on the control stick, and initiated a steep dive towards the Japanese formation, with rushing faithfully following close behind. McCampbell's initial target was a Yokosuka D-4Y Judy dive bomber, flying steadfastly on the formation's left flank. The dive bomber, a sleek and relatively swift aircraft for its class, was utterly defenseless against a Hellcat descending from above, attacking from the bomber's inherently vulnerable rear quarter. McCampbell meticulously aligned his shot, patiently waiting until he had closed the distance to approximately 300 yards before decisively squeezing the trigger. The Hellcat vibrated intensely as all 650 caliber machine guns erupted into a synchronized roar. Streams of glowing tracers arced through the air, converging with deadly precision on the dive bomber. The initial burst struck the Judy's engine cowling and the root of its right wing. Pieces of aluminum skin immediately began to peel away, and a plume of smoke started trailing from the stricken engine. McCampbell maintained pressure on the trigger for another half-second, discharging perhaps 60 rounds in total, then released. The disciplined practice of firing short, controlled bursts was paramount. Wildly spraying ammunition was a surefire way for pilots to exhaust their supply before the engagement concluded. The Judy rolled sluggishly to the right, rapidly losing altitude, its pilot desperately struggling to regain control. The Kuei black smoke rapidly intensified, transforming into an ominous orange flame, and the bomber commenced its terminal spiral towards the vast ocean 25,000 feet below. McCampbell did not linger to watch its descent. His eyes were already scanning for his next target, with energy management foremost in his tactical considerations. The dive from high altitude had imbued his Hellcat with tremendous speed, likely approaching 400 mph, and he masterfully exploited this velocity to zoom back upwards, converting speed into precious altitude. This yo-yo maneuver effectively kept him above the Japanese formation, thereby maintaining his critical energy advantage. Rushing during the same pass had successfully destroyed a torpedo bomber, his gunnery proving equally precise. The Japanese formation now reacted with urgency, Zeros breaking away from their escort positions to intercept the two audacious Hellcats. However, McCampbell had anticipated this very response. He had already climbed back to an imposing 26,000 feet, and the Zeros, encumbered by their external fuel tanks, struggled to match his rapid climb rate. He estimated he had perhaps 30 seconds before they could reach him, ample time for yet another decisive attack. His second target was a Mitsubishi Zero that had climbed with greater alacrity than its companions, attempting to cut off McCampbell's escape route. McCampbell's escape, the aggressor Zero pilot, exhibiting an overzealous approach, discharged his 20mm cannons from an excessive distance, the projectiles harmlessly streaking below Lieutenant Commander McCampbell's formidable Hellcat fighter. McCampbell, with his acute tactical acumen, instantly recognized the enemy's tactical blunder. The Japanese aviator had egregiously miscalculated the necessary deflection angle for a successful strike, thereby squandering precious ammunition. Capitalizing on this error, McCampbell executed a swift barrel roll, skillfully reversing his aerial orientation and transforming his initial altitude advantage into a superior position, situated directly behind and slightly above the unsuspecting Zero. The geometric alignment was impeccable. He unleashed a precise 3-second volley, expending approximately 90 rounds, and the formidable .50 caliber projectiles mercilessly ripped through the Zero's unarmored fuselage. The Japanese fighter, unable to withstand the devastating impact, disintegrated into a shower of metallic fragments and scorched debris, its internal fuel tanks erupting in a dazzling incandescent orange fireball. This brought his tally to 2 enemy aircraft neutralized. McCampbell's unparalleled situational awareness was operating at its zenith. He possessed the remarkable ability to simultaneously track multiple airborne adversaries, anticipating their maneuvers with uncanny precision, a skill honed over countless hours and years of intense combat experience. His keen eyes discerned a pair of Zeros attempting to execute a classic pincer attack, converging on his position from the 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock bearings. This was a quintessential Japanese aerial tactic, designed to compel the American pilot to commit to engaging one threat, thereby leaving him vulnerable to a clear, unobstructed shot from the other Zero. However, McCampbell had encountered and successfully countered this particular maneuver on numerous prior occasions. He decisively pushed the control stick forward, initiating a sharp, precipitous dive, then abruptly pulled hard to the left. The immense G-forces relentlessly pressed him deeper into his cockpit seat, as the Hellcat, with its superior maneuverability, carved an arc inside the attacking Zero's turning radius. The Japanese pilot, despite his best efforts, attempted to follow, but found himself utterly unable to match the Hellcat's blistering roll rate. Seizing the opportune moment, McCampbell unleashed a perfectly executed deflection shot, directing his fire not at the Zero's current position, but precisely where it was destined to be. His concentrated rounds mercilessly perforated the Zero's cockpit. The enemy fighter immediately rolled inverted and spiraled downwards, leaving a telltale plume of thick, dark smoke in its wake. This engagement marked his 3rd confirmed kill, all within a mere 10 minutes of being airborne. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please leave a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. Suddenly, Rushing's urgent voice crackled over the radio transmission. "Skipper, 2 more bombers are breaking right." McCampbell's gaze immediately located them, 2 Nakajima B-6N Jill torpedo bombers, desperately attempting to flee the aerial carnage by diving away from the main formation. These particular bombers were on a direct perilous trajectory toward the American Carrier Task Force. Should they succeed in penetrating the defensive screen, each one carried a potent aerial torpedo, capable of inflicting catastrophic damage and potentially sinking an invaluable aircraft carrier. Without hesitation, McCampbell rolled his Hellcat into a relentless pursuit, pushing the throttle control to its absolute maximum power setting. The powerful R-2800 engine responded instantaneously, its propeller blades aggressively biting into the thin, high-altitude air. He rapidly overhauled the first Jill, the bomber's rear gunner, unleashing a torrent of 7.7mm machine gun fire in a desperate, last-ditch defense. The small-caliber rounds harmlessly ricocheted off the Hellcat's heavily armored windscreen, marring the glass but failing to penetrate its robust protection. McCampbell, undeterred by the defensive fire, opened up with a concentrated burst directly into the bomber's port engine. The engine immediately seized, its propeller freezing rigidly in place, and the Jill began a rapid, uncontrolled descent, losing precious altitude. McCampbell swiftly shifted his aim to the second bomber and fired another devastating burst. This volley struck the fuel tanks nestled between the wings, and the Jill exploded violently in midair. The resulting shock wave briefly buffeted McCampbell's Hellcat, a testament to the explosive force. This brought his impressive tally to 4 and 5 enemy aircraft destroyed. Between the intense engagements, McCampbell briefly glanced at his instrument panel, his eyes performing a practiced, sweeping scan across the array of gauges. Fuel consumption was rapidly becoming a pressing concern. The needles on both the main tank and reserve indicators had dropped significantly, signaling a substantial depletion. Combat maneuvering, particularly the full throttle climbs and dives he had been executing, consumed fuel at an alarming rate. He estimated he had perhaps 45 minutes of flight time remaining, possibly even less given the high stress demands. His ammunition counters indicated he had expended approximately 400 rounds, still a considerable quantity remaining. However, he recognized the imperative to be even more judicious and selective with his shots now. Every single round had to achieve its intended purpose. The Japanese formation was now in utter disarray, their bombers scattering wildly in all directions, while the remaining Zeros desperately attempted to protect them while simultaneously engaging the relentless American fighters. McCampbell observed other Hellcats from different carriers now joining the fray, transforming the sky into a chaotic, swirling furball of wheeling aircraft, streaking tracer rounds, and billowing smoke trails. Yet he maintained an unwavering focus, diligently hunting for opportune targets, while assiduously avoiding tunnel vision. The perilous tendency to fixate on a single target, while inadvertently overlooking potential threats from other directions. A Zero pilot committed a critical, unforgivable error, crossing directly in front of McCampbell's nose at dangerously close range while in pursuit of another Hellcat. McCampbell did not hesitate for an instant. He pulled lead, aiming slightly ahead of the Zero's projected flight path, and unleashed a short, precise burst. The closing speed was exceptionally high, and his rounds tore right through the Zero's cockpit and engine compartment. The Japanese fighter rolled violently to the hard left, pieces of its airframe tearing away, then entered an uncontrollable flat spin. No parachute emerged from the plummeting wreckage. This marked his 6th confirmed kill. McCampbell's combat instincts were now fully engaged, his conscious mind almost relegated to a secondary role, subservient to the automatic responses meticulously drilled through countless hours of intensive training. His hands and feet expertly worked the controls with seamless precision, coordinating stick, rudder, and throttle inputs without any conscious deliberation, while his mind remained several tactical moves ahead, constantly evaluating emergent threats and seizing fleeting opportunities. He spotted yet another bomber attempting to reach the vital carriers, a duty dive bomber skimming perilously low, endeavoring to utilize its speed and altitude to evade the tenacious American fighters. McCampbell rolled, inverted, and pulled through, diving relentlessly after the fleeing bomber. The pursuit extended for several grueling miles. McCampbell gradually overtook the initially faster bomber due to his Hellcat's superior speed capabilities at lower altitudes. The Japanese pilot demonstrated considerable skill, jinking left and right, making himself an incredibly difficult target. McCampbell waited patiently, steadfastly refusing to squander precious ammunition on low-percentage shots. He closed the distance to 200 yards, then 50 yards, until he could clearly discern the rear gunner frantically operating his weapon. McCampbell fired a long, sustained burst, likely 80 rounds, and the concentrated fire utterly shredded the Judy's tail section. The bomber's elevator controls were completely destroyed, and the aircraft pitched violently nose down into the unforgiving ocean. This brought his incredible tally to 7 enemy aircraft destroyed. Rushing's voice crackled once more over the radio. "Boss, I'm at Bingo Fuel." Bingo Fuel signified that Rushing had reached the absolute minimum fuel required to safely return to the carrier with adequate reserves. McCampbell checked his own fuel gauges. He was alarmingly close to Bingo himself. Perhaps 5 minutes of combat time remained. However, the Japanese formation was still within striking range, and more bombers were desperately attempting to break through the defensive screen. McCampbell made a swift, calculated decision. He would continue to engage the enemy until his fuel situation became absolutely critical. "Copy, Roy. Head back. I'll stay another few minutes." Rushing acknowledged the order and turned his Hellcat toward the distant Essex, his aircraft quickly disappearing into the vast expanse. McCampbell was now utterly alone, one solitary fighter against the remnants of the formidable Japanese strike force. The seasoned pilot ascended once more, meticulously scanning the vast expanse for any discernible targets. Below him, 2 formidable Zero fighters were observed circling, clearly reconnoitering for his presence. McCampbell, possessing the strategic superiority of altitude, masterfully exploited this advantage. He plummeted in a swift dive towards the trailing Zero, its Japanese pilot utterly oblivious to the Hellcat's predatory descent from the blinding glare of the sun directly behind him. McCampbell, as subsequent shot, was nothing short of exemplary, an impeccably timed 2-second burst that simultaneously perforated the Zero's engine and cockpit. The enemy fighter incinerated in a spectacular explosion, the cataclysmic blast so violent that McCampbell was compelled to execute a rapid maneuver to evade the scattered fragments of debris. This marked his 8th confirmed victory. The second Zero instantly countered, executing a sharp, evasive turn to the left and climbing aggressively, desperately attempting to outmaneuver McCampbell and gain a superior position. However, the Hellcat's inherent speed allowed McCampbell to swiftly extend away, creating crucial separation before utilizing his energy to re-establish his commanding altitude above the Zero. The Japanese pilot, undeniably adept, executed proper evasive tactics. Yet the inherent disparity in aircraft capabilities proved insurmountable. McCampbell, having flawlessly positioned himself, unleashed his decisive volley, and the ninth Zero plunged earthward, leaving a mournful trail of smoke and flame. 9 enemy aircraft lay destroyed. McCampbell's ammunition counters indicated he had expended approximately 900 rounds in total, just over a third of his entire ammunition load, a monumental display of marksmanship and an extraordinary economy of fire. Nevertheless, his fuel situation had now become precarious. The warning light on his fuel panel ominously illuminated in red, signaling a scant 15 minutes of flight time remaining at cruise power. He desperately turned the Hellcat towards the direction where he hoped the USS Essex would be, radioing for a heading. The diligent fighter direction officer acknowledged his plea and promptly provided the necessary vectors. McCampbell, with meticulous care, optimized his aircraft for maximum fuel efficiency, leaning the mixture and reducing the RPM to conserve every precious drop. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. Roy Rushing's engagement had been equally ferocious, though his combat unfolded along a distinct segment of the turbulent aerial arena. While McCampbell dominated the high-altitude portion of the engagement, Rushing had diverted his attention to bombers attempting to elude at medium altitude, specifically between 15,000 and 20,000 feet. His inaugural kill materialized within minutes of McCampbell's initial attack, a Nakajima B-6N Jill that had broken formation and was racing towards the American carriers at full throttle. Rushing closed from directly astern, the classic 6,000 position, and unleashed a sustained burst that tore through the bomber of us fuselage and cockpit. The Jill careened nose first and plunged into the sea. His subsequent victory was another Jill, this one seeking refuge by attempting to climb back into obscuring cumulonimbus. Rushing relentlessly tracked it into the clouds, navigating solely by instrumentation briefly, then re-emerged above the cloud layer just as the bomber broke into clear air. He destroyed it with a precisely aimed deflection shot that amputated the bomber's tail. Rushing's 3rd through 5th kills came in swift succession during a 3-minute span, a testament to both his exceptional gunnery skills and his unwavering focus and tactical acumen. He had discerned a group of 3 Zeros providing formidable escort to 2 remaining bombers. Rather than engaging the fighters first, he decisively opted for a high-speed, blitzkrieg-like assault on the bombers from an unforeseen vector, diving from their 11,000 position. The Zeros simply couldn't react quickly enough. Rushing incapacitated both bombers with short, accurate bursts, then leveraged his superior speed to rapidly ascend before the Zeros could engage. When one Zero pilot attempted to pursue him, Rushing reversed his trajectory, catching the climbing Zero in a disadvantaged energy state and shot it down. His 6th kill was a Judy dive bomber that had somehow eluded detection by other American fighters and was making a persistent, determined run towards the carriers. Rushing intercepted it at 8,000 feet, fired a long burst into its port side wing, and the wing catastrophically detached. The bomber tumbled uncontrollably into the ocean, resembling a discarded autumn leaf. His 7th and culminating triumph proved to be the most arduous. He engaged a Zero pilot, who was clearly a formidable adversary, more seasoned than most, someone who had mastered the intricacies of energy management and effectively utilized the Zero's nimble maneuverability. The two fighters engaged in a protracted aerial ballet for several minutes, each striving to achieve strategic ascendancy. Rushing, recognizing he couldn't outturn the Zero, wisely refrained from trying. Instead, he employed vertical maneuvers, steep climbs, rapid dives, and intricate barrel rolls, where the Hellcat's superior engine output gave him a decisive edge. Eventually, the Zero pilot made a critical misstep, pulling too hard in a turn and squandering valuable kinetic energy. Rushing instantaneously seized the opportunity, firing a burst that struck the Zero's engine. The Japanese fighter, engine seized, and without power, it was paralyzed. Rushing delivered the final blow with another burst that ignited its volatile fuel cells. 7 confirmed kills in a single mission, an unparalleled feat by any measure. However, his fuel situation was now perilous. When Rushing called out "Bingo fuel" and turned back towards the Essex, his fuel gauges were reading near empty, signaling imminent fuel exhaustion. He had been airborne for roughly 90 minutes, most of it sustained at combat power settings. The return flight seemed agonizingly protracted, every minute filled with trepidation, wondering if his engine would sputter and die before he reached the carrier. He finally spotted the vast armada, multiple carriers, battleships, cruisers, and destroyers spread across miles of ocean, but identifying the specific flagship, the Essex, proved difficult. They all looked similar from altitude, and battle damage or different configurations could create optical ambiguity. Rushing solicited navigational assistance, and the fighter control officer guided him in with a precise vector. But as he descended towards the Essex, a deck crew member emphatically waved him off. The deck was congested with aircraft, being repositioned and retasked. Rushing had no reserves of fuel to circle and wait. He rerouted to the USS Langley, a light carrier operating nearby, and requested expedited landing permission. The Langley's landing signal officer guided him in, paddles moving in the precisely choreographed hand signals that communicated Rushing's approach speed and lineup. Rushing's Hellcat transited the carrier's stern, caught the number 3, arresting wire, and abruptly halted with a violent jerk. His engine sputtered once, twice, then flickered and succumbed completely. Rushing lingered in the cockpit for a moment, the adrenaline ebbing, his hands trembling visibly from the stress of the engagement and the fuel-critical landing. Deck crew swarmed around his aircraft, immobilizing the wheels and attaching a tow bar. When mechanics checked his fuel tanks, they found an astonishingly meager less than 5 gallons remaining, barely sufficient for 2 minutes of flight. Had the Langley not been providentially available, Rushing would have been compelled to ditch in the ocean and hoped for rescue by a destroyer. The ordeal for Commander David McCampbell mirrored the challenges faced by others. His aircraft's fuel indicators registered perilously low levels as he approached the formidable task force. Upon sighting the USS Essex, he was met with a disheartening wave-off. The flight deck remained obstructed, preventing any landing. At this critical juncture, McCampbell's engine began to falter, its rough performance and intermittent misfires clearly signaling fuel starvation. With no time to spare, he, like Lieutenant I Junior grade, rushing before him, made the swift decision to divert to the USS Langley. His subsequent approach was executed with pristine precision, culminating in a flawless landing despite the immense psychological strain. As his Hellcat fighter rolled to a complete halt, its engine spontaneously died before the ground crew could even reach the aircraft. Subsequent measurements by mechanics revealed a mere 10 gallons of fuel remaining in his tanks, a stark testament to how both pilots had pushed their formidable machines and their own endurance to their absolute operational limits. As Commander McCampbell emerged from the cockpit of his Hellcat on the Langley's bustling flight deck, he was greeted by the gazes of the flight crew, a mixture of profound awe and incredulity etched upon their faces. News, though fragmented, had already begun to ripple through the task force's extensive radio networks regarding the extraordinary aerial engagement, whispers of unprecedented kill counts, and the astonishing feat of 2 pilots single-handedly repelling an entire Japanese strike force. Almost immediately, an intelligence officer, clipboard in hand, approached McCampbell to commence the mandatory post-mission debriefing. These rigorous sessions were absolutely crucial for the official validation of victory claims. The United States Navy demanded concrete corroborating evidence, which typically included gun camera footage, sworn witness statements from other aviators, or physical confirmation of wreckage. It was a well-known phenomenon that enthusiastic overclaiming was rampant amidst the chaotic maelstrom of aerial combat, where multiple pilots might simultaneously engage the same target and each subsequently assert credit for its destruction. Consequently, McCampbell's truly astounding claims would be subjected to an exceptionally meticulous and thorough scrutiny. McCampbell proceeded to recount each engagement with painstaking methodology, providing precise details regarding altitudes, headings, the specific types of enemy aircraft encountered, and the damage he observed. His gun camera film was anticipated to furnish irrefutable evidence. The K-24 camera, discreetly mounted behind the Hellcat's instrument panel, would have automatically activated the moment he depressed the trigger, meticulously capturing footage of his targets. That film, once painstakingly developed, would unequivocally depict 9 distinct enemy aircraft being struck by his concentrated fire and plummeting from the sky. Lieutenant Junior Grade, Rushing underwent an identical debriefing procedure, his 7 confirmed kills similarly necessitating stringent verification. The diligent intelligence officers meticulously cross-referenced their individual accounts with radar tracks, radio communications intercepted from other pilots, and direct observations from ship personnel who had witnessed various segments of the engagement. In the days that followed, all 16 kills were officially confirmed, 9 attributed to McCampbell, and 7 to Rushing. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. Never before in the annals of American fighter aviation had any pilots achieved such extraordinary single-mission kill totals while operating as a mere 2-plane element against such overwhelmingly superior numbers. The repercussions for Japanese naval aviation were both immediate and utterly catastrophic. The formidable strike force that had descended upon the American carriers that fateful morning comprised approximately 60 aircraft. By the time the intense aerial engagement concluded, fewer than 20 Japanese planes managed to limp back to their distant bases. The handful of bombers that did penetrate the defensive screen and succeeded in attacking the American carriers achieved only negligible results. No carriers were lost, and only superficial damage was inflicted upon a few ancillary vessels. Japanese records from October 24, 1944, vividly underscore the profound shock and disarray within their command structure. They had committed a substantial portion of their dwindling air strength to this audacious attack, fully anticipating to inflict grievous damage upon the American fleet. Instead, they had suffered devastating losses for an utterly negligible gain. The psychological impact on the surviving Japanese pilots was profound. Reports began to circulate, speaking of American superfighters and aviators possessing almost supernatural skill, thereby firmly entrenching the mythology surrounding American fighter superiority, which had already begun to solidify since the momentous Marianas Turkey shoot in June 1944. Admiral William Halsey, the esteemed commander of the Third Fleet, dispatched a personal commendation to Commander McCampbell within days of the remarkable engagement. Fleet headquarters swiftly recognized that McCampbell and Rushing had, through their individual heroism, single-handedly averted what could have been a calamitous assault on the aircraft carriers, providing crucial support for the Leyte Gulf invasion. The Navy Department moved with commendable alacrity to acknowledge McCampbell's monumental achievement with the Medal of Honor, the nation's most distinguished military decoration. The accompanying citation, formally presented in January 1945, read in part, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity, at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, as Commander, Air Group 15, during combat against enemy Japanese aerial forces in the First and Second Battles of the Philippine Sea. An inspiring leader, fighting boldly in the face of terrific odds, Commander McCampbell led his fighter planes against a force of 80 Japanese carrier-based aircraft bearing down on our fleet on June 19, 1944. The citation continued, meticulously documenting his heroic October 24th mission, where he shot down 9 Japanese planes and utterly disrupted the enemy's offensive, ultimately establishing him as the Navy's leading ace, with an astonishing total of 34 enemy aircraft destroyed. The tactical insights gleaned from this pivotal engagement were subjected to intensive analysis by naval aviation commands across the fleet. McCampbell's exemplary disciplined ammunition management quickly became a cornerstone of required teaching in fighter tactics courses. His unparalleled ability to destroy 9 enemy aircraft with approximately 900 rounds represented a hit efficiency that very few other pilots could hope to emulate. Furthermore, his mastery of energy management, utilizing altitude and speed to dictate the terms of engagement, was swiftly codified into official doctrine. The engagement also served as a resounding validation of the Hellcat's fundamental design philosophy. The aircraft had performed precisely as Grumman engineers had envisioned. It furnished a highly skilled pilot with the essential tools required to unequivocally dominate in aerial combat. Consequently, the production of Hellcats was significantly accelerated, and by the cessation of hostilities, an impressive total of over 12,000 F-6F Hellcats had been manufactured. The aircraft's kill ratio against Japanese fighters stood at an astonishing approximate 19:1, meaning that for every Hellcat lost in combat, American pilots accounted for 19 Japanese aircraft. No other fighter aircraft in World War II could boast such an extraordinary and decisive record. Commander McCampbell eventually returned to the Essex later that same day, having been transported by a destroyer. His air group greeted him with a torrent of congratulations. Yet McCampbell, true to his modest character, characteristically downplayed his monumental achievement. He humbly credited the Hellcat's superior performance and emphatically highlighted lieutenant junior grade, Rushing's equally impressive 7-kill mission. However, the United States Navy was not inclined to permit this extraordinary accomplishment to simply fade into the realm of routine operational reports. McCampbell swiftly became the quintessential face of American naval aviation's burgeoning dominance, making prominent appearances in newsreels and actively participating in war bond drives once he rotated stateside in early 1945. Early in 1945, the remarkable aerial achievements of David McCampbell had firmly established his place in military history. By the cessation of hostilities, his illustrious career culminated with a formidable total of 34 confirmed aerial victories, an unparalleled feat that cemented his status as the United States Navy's undisputed all-time leading ace. This extraordinary record, forged over 8 decades ago, remains unblemished and is widely considered unbreakable, primarily due to the profoundly altered landscape of modern aerial warfare, which rarely features the close-quarters dogfights of previous eras. These 34 triumphs were not merely the product of audacious daring or fortunate circumstances. Rather, they represented a profound synthesis of exceptional piloting skill, unparalleled tactical acumen, and a seamless, almost symbiotic connection between Aviator and his formidable F-6F Hellcat aircraft. McCampbell's extensive operational experience was underscored by his completion of 7 demanding combat tours and over 400 precision carrier landings, each requiring unwavering nerve and pinpoint accuracy. His final combat sortie occurred in December 1944, after which he was judiciously rotated stateside. The Naval High Command recognized the immense value of retaining their preeminent ace, opting to leverage his invaluable combat experience to meticulously train and inspire the succeeding generation of burgeoning fighter pilots, rather than risk his loss in further engagements. Concurrently, Roy Rushing concluded his wartime service, having achieved a distinguished record of 13 confirmed aerial victories. His exceptional bravery and skill during the pivotal October 24th mission earned him the prestigious Navy Cross, a testament to his valor. Rushing continued to actively participate in combat operations, diligently flying missions until the final cessation of hostilities in August 1945. Following the war, his dedication to naval service persisted, and he remained a valued member of the Navy, steadily advancing through the ranks until his eventual retirement as a captain in 1964, capping a long and distinguished career. He departed this life in 2004 at the venerable age of 84, having had the unique opportunity to witness the profound and rapid evolution of naval aviation firsthand. His lifetime spanned the dramatic transition from the piston-engine fighters he once piloted, through the nascent jet age, to the sophisticated and highly advanced FA-18 Super Hornets that dominate modern skies. In reflective interviews conducted late in his life, Rushing consistently demonstrated a profound humility, often emphasizing that the iconic October 24, 1944, mission was, in his modest words, simply an instance where everything went right. These understated remarks belied the extraordinary courage and exceptional proficiency that defined his accomplishments that day. Throughout their lives, he and McCampbell maintained a deep and abiding friendship, frequently gracing naval aviation reunions and specialized symposiums with their presence. At these gatherings, younger, eager pilots would invariably gravitate towards them, seeking insights into the precise techniques and the mental fortitude that enabled such legendary results in the crucible of combat. Please stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. The overarching strategic impact of the Battle of Leyte Gulf, within which the aerial engagement of October 24th served as a critical component, simply cannot be overstated in terms of its decisive significance. Over the intense four-day period from October 23rd to October 26, 1944, the Imperial Japanese Navy was, in essence, utterly annihilated as a viable fighting force. Japan suffered catastrophic and irreplaceable losses, including 4 aircraft carriers, 3 battleships, 10 cruisers, and 11 destroyers. Naval assets they possessed no capacity to replace. Consequently, American naval supremacy in Philippine waters was definitively secured, thereby ensuring the liberation of the Philippines could proceed precisely as scheduled. This monumental victory furthermore brought the Japanese home islands squarely within the operational range of American bombers, unequivocally clearing the pathway to ultimate Allied triumph. While the direct contribution of McCampbell and Rushing to this grander strategic tapestry might appear numerically modest, accounting for the destruction of just 16 enemy aircraft, the profound significance of these interceptions was immeasurable. Each of those 16 aircraft represented a potential bomber poised to unleash devastating attacks upon American aircraft carriers. Had even a mere 2 or 3 of these enemy bombers managed to penetrate the defenses and successfully deliver their torpedoes, an invaluable carrier could have sustained critical damage or even been sunk, an event that would undoubtedly have protracted ongoing operations and tragically claimed numerous American lives. McCampbell's distinguished post-war career seamlessly mirrored his impeccable wartime reputation and proven competence. He remained a dedicated officer within the United States Navy, serving with distinction in a diverse array of increasingly responsible command and staff positions. His leadership capabilities were notably demonstrated when he commanded the carrier, USS Severn, and his strategic acumen was further utilized as a planning officer for the Chief of Naval Operations. He ultimately concluded his active service, retiring as a captain in 1964, leaving behind an indelible legacy of unwavering commitment. However, retirement did not usher in an era of obscurity for McCampbell. He continued to actively engage with the aviation world, applying his profound expertise within the burgeoning aerospace industry, offering invaluable consultation on advanced fighter tactics, and becoming a highly sought-after speaker at numerous prestigious military and aviation events. His enduring legacy was further commemorated when the Navy honored him by naming a guided missile destroyer, the USS McCampbell, DDG-85. In his honor, this formidable vessel was commissioned in 2002, just 3 years prior to his passing. When David McCampbell passed away on June 30, 1996, at the age of 86, he was interred with full military honors at the hallowed grounds of Arlington National Cemetery. His gravestone stands as a permanent, solemn testament to his extraordinary service, bearing his name, rank, and the esteemed citation for his Medal of Honor. The pivotal mission of October 24, 1944, irrevocably altered Japanese military leadership's perceptions of American fighter capabilities. Prior to this decisive engagement, Japanese commanders, despite accumulating heavy losses, still harbored a persistent belief that their pilots could, under optimal circumstances, achieve localized air superiority. However, following the Battle of Leyte Gulf, that precarious illusion was utterly shattered. American intelligence intercepts of Japanese radio communications in the weeks subsequent to the battle revealed a profound and discernible shift in tone. The previous bravado had been replaced by a palpable sense of resignation, an explicit acknowledgement that they could no longer effectively contest the overwhelming might of American air power. The Japanese pilot training programs had by this point suffered a catastrophic collapse under the relentless strain of protracted warfare, leading to new pilots receiving dangerously minimal flight instruction, in some cases as little as 100 hours, before being thrust into the unforgiving crucible of combat. This starkly contrasted with American aviators such as the highly experienced McCampbell, who often possessed thousands of hours of invaluable flight time. The resulting qualitative gap in pilot skill was insurmountable, and when coupled with the overwhelming quantitative disparity in aircraft production, where American factories vastly outpaced Japan's capacity, the ultimate outcome of the air war became an inevitable conclusion. The F-6F Hellcat, a formidable machine, steadfastly remained in frontline service until the very culmination of the war, eventually yielding its operational role to the swifter F-8F Bearcat and the nascent generation of jet aircraft. Yet during its active operational period from 1943 to 1945, the Hellcat achieved an astonishing record, destroying approximately 5,200 enemy aircraft while suffering the loss of merely about 270 Hellcats in air-to-air combat. This remarkable 19:1 kill ratio was not confined to the exploits of elite aces like McCampbell. It was consistently achieved by pilots across the entire spectrum of experience, from seasoned veterans to fresh aviators embarking on their inaugural combat missions. Fundamentally, the aircraft's exceptional design and robust performance transformed average pilots into highly effective combatants and elevated skilled aviators to extraordinary levels of accomplishment. Even today, modern fighter pilots meticulously study McCampbell's legendary missions at the prestigious Naval Fighter Weapons School, universally recognized as Top Gun. Here, his astute tactical decisions are rigorously analyzed, and his pioneering energy management techniques continue to be a fundamental component of the curriculum. The timeless principles he expertly applied in 1944 remain profoundly relevant in the context of contemporary air combat. Despite the dramatic evolution in aircraft design and weapon systems, the intrinsic truths persist. Altitude undeniably equates to energy. Energy directly dictates available engagement options, and disciplined fire control remains paramount for maximizing ammunition effectiveness. These fundamental truths transcend technological advancements. David McCampbell's enduring legacy is measured not solely by his impressive tally of 34 aerial victories or his revered Medal of Honor, but more profoundly by how he personified the unwavering professionalism and unparalleled skill that unequivocally defined American naval aviation during the pivotal era of World War II. His October 24th mission stands as arguably the single greatest individual fighter pilot achievement in the annals of history. An astonishing 9 enemy aircraft destroyed in a solitary mission, executed while facing overwhelming odds of 30-1. Following this devastating encounter, the Japanese never again underestimated the formidable F-6F Hellcat or the exceptional pilots who flew them.